Yesterday we let ourselves be inspired by literature. Today I want to teach you 3 strategies to write with power and volume using literature as your inspiration. The first strategy that writers use is the actual topic the writers write about. For example, when we read 11, many of us were reminded of an experience with a mean teacher or a piece of clothing that was troublesome. So when reading another author's text, writers are often inspired by the topic that the other writer is using. The second strategy that writers can be inspired by when reading someone else's text are the themes or the issues that the writer puts forth. So, for example, after reading 11, many of us remembered a time in our childhood when we felt voiceless, or we felt bullied, or you felt like a small child. The last strategy is that inspiration can come from a word, it can come from a phrase, or it can come from an image that the author uses. So when reading another author's text, writers are often inspired by these 3 things. We're going to read a short section of a memoir, and we're going to see how a student named Adam was inspired by this memoir. So the memoir is called Last Kiss by Ralph Fletcher. Mom and Dad always kissed us goodnight before we went to bed. Mom kissed my right cheek, Dad my left. After that, I got under the covers and it was an easy glide to sleep. These kisses were a regular part of the bedtime routine, like brushing my teeth, having the nightly bowl of cereal, or hearing a story before lights out. It felt like having air to breathe or a blanket to keep me warm. Automatic. And I never gave it a second thought. One night I finished my bedtime bowl of cereal and went to Mom. "Sleep tight," she murmured, kissing me on the cheek. "Night, Mom." I found Dad sitting at the desk in his office. "I'm going to bed," I told him. "Well, good night." To my great surprise, he reached out and shook my hand. At first, I just stood there confused. Finally, I took his hand and shook it the way I'd seen men shake hands. "Sleep tight," he said. Then he turned away from me, went back to his paperwork. Feeling more surprised than her, I headed off to bed. Next night, I gave it another shot. After eating my bowl of cereal, I went to Mom. She kissed me and gave me a big hug. That built up my courage before I went to my Dad. I found him out on the driveway. He was packing the trunk of his car, getting ready to go on a business trip. "Hey," he said, straightening up. "Bedtime?" "Yeah." I moved toward him. "Good night." He wrapped his arms around me and gave me a bear hug. "Night." My voice was muffled against his chest. He released me and went back to packing the car. For a few seconds I didn't move. The night was warm. Fireflies were out floating on the evening breeze. They made me think of the jellyfish Dad and I saw one night about a year before when we were on a dock at the beach. I noticed lights flickering in the dark water and was amazed to find out that they were living animals. "How can they light up like that?" I had asked my Dad. "They make their own light," he explained, "like fireflies." "How do jellyfish move?" I asked him. "Do they have fins?" "No," Dad said. "But what if they want to see their friends?" I asked. "How do they get there?" "They drift in the tide," Dad explained, "if they're lucky. The tide will help them drift to where they want to go." "What if they want to see their friends but they're not lucky?" I asked. He shrugged. "Then I guess they drift away from each other." 2 more times I went to Dad for a goodnight kiss. No luck. Finally, I gave up. Mom still kissed me goodnight on my right cheek, but somehow it didn't feel the same. Her kisses didn't have the safe, solid feeling they'd had before. I laid in bed trying to figure it out. Even though I was confused, one thing seemed clear. My father and I had drifted away from each other in a small but important way, a way that I couldn't explain, not even to myself. So this is Adam's writer. He was inspired by this text by Ralph Fletcher. We're going to take a look at how he was inspired. So here's what Adam wrote after reading. "If it had nothing else, my relationship with my brother had conflict. He would wake up early, me late. He would go to bed late, me early. He would play defense, him a lefty, him liking the backyard. I would play offense, me a righty, me liking the woods behind the backyard. If my brother had anything in our relationship, it was power. I was in the den first. He still got the remote. If I wanted to go outside with my friends, he got to go outside with his friends. The conflict seemed to happen rarely. It grew from little fights before bed. It was John who picked on me. At bedtime, he would come to my bed and turn the lights on or ask me questions and catch me sleep talking. So, in this text, Adam decided to write off of Ralph Fletcher's last kiss. In the memoir, Ralph contrasts his mother and his father, the goodnight kisses and their roles in his life, and ends by saying, "If nothing else, my childhood has symmetry." After reading that, Adam was inspired and he wrote an entry. Later, when I pulled close to see when we look closer at what Adam wrote, we can see that his entry contained 3 different attempts to write off of Ralph Fletcher's writing, using the phrase, "if nothing else." So that's something that phrase is something that inspired Adam. He continued to say, "if nothing else," throughout his writing. There are more ways that Adam was inspired by Ralph Fletcher, and we'd like to know what you're thinking. So go ahead and head to Recap right now and post a video response. How was Adam inspired by Ralph Fletcher? What strategy did he use? This is not the end of the video, so when you're done with Recap, please come back here. Go ahead and press pause now. Okay, now that you've recorded your response, let's keep going. Most of us have spent some time writing off of published authors' work so far. We did that in the last session, and we just watched it happen today with Ralph Fletcher. However, to find a mentor text, you don't even need to look past the resources we have in this classroom. Each one of your classmates has been working on a memoir, just like you have too. And each of you can be the kind of writer who inspires others. So today we're going to be inspired by each other's writing. We've picked out 3 or 4 mentor memoirs and you're going to, from the class, and you're going to choose one of them to read today. So the first thing you'll do is, with a partner, read through one of the selected classmate memoirs. The second thing, once you've read through it, you're going to choose one thing that you liked that they did that you want to try. It could be a phrase they used, it could be a theme that they were talking about. Once you've picked that out, the third step is you're going to write it on a Post-it note so we can see it, and you're going to get to work on your memoir. You're going to write for 20 to 30 minutes. Have fun.